In a second.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello, my name is Gracie Horn. I am from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and this evening I am interviewing a well-known artist, and I am a part of the Minnesota Native Artists Alliance. If you don't know who we are, here's just a little bit of what we do and kind of what we're about. The Minnesota Native Artists Alliance is creating an equitable statewide space for dialogue, experimental practice, and community engaged work that contributes to new ideas and an understanding of how art mediums might be translated and transformed by Native knowledge, traditions, aesthetics, performance, and land use systems. We are based out of the Midwest or the Burley state of Minnesota, and this evening's discussion is about the value of digital art as native art pedagogy. As everybody might know, this is Art Talks and Tea. So we host conversations monthly with artists and performers or art professionals around Indian country. And we have a conversation drinking tea and that we send to the people that we are interviewing, and then we just have a conversation about topics that are kind of leading the way in Indian country or things that are just kind of going on in Indian country. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to this evening's conversation. Hello to the people on the MNAA Facebook live, and hello to the people viewing us on powwows.com. So without further ado, I'd love to bring out Marlena Myles, who is also from Minnesota, from St. Paul to be exact. Hi, Marlena.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. So before we kind of like go into who you are and what you do, what are you drinking this evening?
I'm currently drinking choke cherry tea that is sweetened with maple syrup, so it's pretty yummy. It's really hot right
I
now.
I've never ever drank. Is that what we sent you?
Yeah, that's what I
Wow,
got.
I like being like pleasantly surprised at the tea that's sent out because I never know what it is. And so I'm happy to hear. I've actually never had choke cherry tea. I don't know what the properties of it are, or like what the healing elements are. Do you know anything about choke cherry tea?
There was a little label that talked about like antioxidants and reducing like chances of getting cancer and stuff, but I
Oh,
don't know.
wow.
I don't know how powerful that is, but it doesn't have, you know, the the taste of choke cherry that like takes all the moisture out of your mouth. So it's actually pretty good because normally, I'm not the
Oh,
biggest fan of choke cherry, even though it's like one of our biggest foods. I just think it's
yeah.
unless you mix it with something else, it's hard just to eat. But it lives up to its
Yeah.
name.
Yeah, I've had choke cherry jam, but that was like added sweetener into it. So I had a preference for it, but it was probably because of the sweetener that was put in it. And then I don't I've had a few times where I've actually picked choke cherries, but I have not done that in a long time. And I feel like every time that I do eat it, it's like during ceremony and we get, the quintessential um choke cherry patties with the seeds grinded up into it. So it's always this like danger to your teeth almost. Like if I had braces, it'd probably be endangered. But yeah, same thing. Like I appreciate it because it's cultural and it's something that our people ate, and it was probably the sweetest thing in the woodlands and plains. But I couldn't tell you like when the last time I actually ate it. So and then this evening, I forgot, this evening I am drinking jasmine silver needles, which I usually drink in the evening because it's really not that caffeinated. It kind of just depends on how much you steep. And I'm really excited because I was in Santa Fe this weekend and I got some new tea gear. So I got a new Gaiwan And then I got a new, and this is a traveling one. It comes in a case, and I got a new teacup. So I'm excited, and tea. So I mean, probably should have been buying native art this weekend, but instead I'm coming back with more tea. But I love it. I mean, it's in my price point. So I'm like, I wish I had that money for all those things one day. So, instead of reading off a bio, I like to let the artist introduce themselves and their practice just because I feel like a bio can only do so much. And we've all been to these panel discussions, and it's kind of like the same exact bio reading, and it's very dry. And so, I like to kind of like break what has already been done and just kind of let the artist speak for themselves. Did you prepare our slideshow?
Yeah, have a little slideshow.
Cool. I'm excited because I know, I mean, I'm excited for this conversation because I know you in the community. You've done phenomenal works. And I think the first time I've ever seen your work was in what, 2014, 2015 at the All My Relations Gallery. And so it's been a long time, and it's like you only get so much when you're in the same community. So it's nice to kind of see from like the artist's perspective and kind of them talking about what they do. So I'm excited for this. So we'll just like let it, well, I'll just be quiet.
You can interrupt if it's something funny. I don't know. Um, okay, can you see it? So this is a little PowerPoint about myself. I grew up in Minneapolis at Little Earth for elementary school and actually attended middle school and high school in Rapid City, South Dakota. Um, I should also mention my name and all that before I get started. So my name is Marlena Myles. I'm Spirit Lake, Dakota. I grew up in Minneapolis. I was born in Connecticut, where my dad's tribe is. I spent my early years, I guess my teenage years, in Rapid City, South Dakota, and I actually didn't take any art classes past eighth grade. I was heavily into music. Here's me with my flute and playing the piano. So even though I'm not really trained, I'd say in art, I was always doing art as a hobby. Music was difficult and challenging to me, and so I felt like I had to practice 10 times as hard as anyone else to be the best. I'm just a competitive person, but art came to me so easily that I guess because it wasn't a challenge, I just didn't think it's something I should have focused on. I don't know why I had that backwards in life. You know, you should focus on your strengths sometimes. So, but a lot of the things I learned in music about like classical music composition, like the emotions that you can get from different like key signatures, I think all of that has helped me, you know, translate it or transpose these kind of creative thoughts into visual art forms. And it's also helped me when I create animations about music videos. I'll talk to a little bit later that, you know, lets me listen to music and create art that moves in time. So I feel like, you know, it has helped me as an artist to have musical as my like professional training. But these are like the kind of artworks I used to do for fun. I used to do a lot of portrait drawings and graphite. I used to do a lot of ink drawings. I got my first computer in like 1998, and I was really into like doing graphic designs with like the tiny screens and the bad programs that were available, like on Windows. What is it, 98 or Windows Millennium Edition? So yeah, technology's gotten a lot better, and so you know, I got into doing Adobe Illustrator probably 2014. Before that, I used to do a lot of art in Photoshop. But vector art in Illustrator, it's math based, so it can be blown up to any size without using quality or anything like that. So it's kind of like why I wanted to get into that program because I know with those formats, it could be exported into the files needed to animate or files that you could put into a 3D printer or machines that cut out silhouettes or printed onto vinyl. So just a lot of ways that the art can be adapted from the computer screen into something much more. And growing up in Twin Cities at Little Earth, and I went to an elementary school at Four Winds. Outside of those areas, I never really saw anything that showed that this was Dakota homelands. Like it just wasn't something I saw in my community. So, when I got done with high school, I wanted to do something with art, but also give it a purpose. I didn't want to just draw portraits really well because it wasn't really inspiring and I didn't think it really served much of a purpose, like to the greater good, I guess. Like it's impressive maybe to the person who wants that portrait. But, I used Illustrator to create this Dakota land map of the Twin Cities that shows like the past places, the sacred sites, also the current places in Dakota to kind of show that this is our homelands and that even though there's a big urban city here, that it is still very much Dakota. And I think a lot of people, once they see a big overview of all the sites, it opens their eyes to how the river connected the Dakota people on this land and how it's still important to us today, and that we sort of need to reclaim this history because it's been here for thousands of years. You can't just let it disappear. And that goes for everybody, not just Dakota people revitalizing our culture, but other people who live here also learning to be a little bit more Dakota. Because I think if you're going to honor your relationship as a human being, Dakota people, we have the ability to teach others who might not have that in their culture anymore how to reclaim that. And so, using this map, it kind of has inspired me as an artist to how to create land based art. That includes a lot of public art, so I'll show a little bit of that. This is a window vinyl mural I created for the city of Minneapolis. So I created these digitally, and because it's an Illustrator, it could be blown up to the size that they need, which I think is 34 feet by 10 feet in height. You can see this in a new public service building that's located downtown Minneapolis on the 6th floor. And it just shows what wealth is to Dakota people. Um, it takes place in Owamni, which is St. Anthony Falls, and that sort of is where Minneapolis, the city, developed its wealth through the mills and through logging and all that kind of stuff. And to Dakota people, we say horses came to us from a whirlpool, and because Owamni means whirlpool, I just situated it as the horses there. And when we developed the relationship with them, we were able to travel much further, hunt buffalo, and expand our empire, I guess, from the woodlands into the plains. So I think for wealth for us, it's valuing relationships and everybody's role in the community and not seeing each other as just a resource to exploit. And this is another window mural I created in the same building that's on the Skyway. There's actually 6 window vinyl murals, and each of them have a different Dakota virtue because across from it is the actual seal of Minneapolis. And I wanted to create something that looked like stained glass that showed if we had a seal of Minneapolis, what kind of things that we would feel would be important as Dakota people to pass down to generations. And each of the windows sort of represent a different region. Here's another view of the murals. You can actually go to the Skyway anytime and check them out in person. They're really cool. They're like my favorite works I've ever created. I was really
I
happy
love
to.
it.
Yeah, it was only but
The wood and the colors and the florals and the geometrics, just that, like, that it's so beautiful. Is this what we seen, or is this like in person, or was that the first one?
um the first one is on the 6th floor. This is on the Skyway, but all of these are
Okay.
created in Illustrator, and these ones you can see at any time. But yeah, the building has won a lot of awards. It brings all of the public workers in Minneapolis into one building because prior to this, they were all scattered all over the place, and it was just hard to communicate. And so, I mean, it's definitely worth checking out the building too, just to see the other artworks that are there. And this is a mural I painted. I've only painted a few murals, and this is only my second ever mural I painted. It's part of the Chromosome Mural Festival from last year. So every year they add about 10 new murals. So you go to their website, download the map, and there's a lot of murals to check out. Other native artists like Thomasina Top Bear has artwork there. But yeah, I think it's really good for them to bring in a lot of local artists who might not get the opportunity to paint, and be able to express their own community voice in this neighborhood. So I painted with my sister. It took about 2 weeks. It's called the Kaposia Times because downtown St. Paul, the Dakota village there, was called Kaposia. And this mural is situated pretty much in the middle of Minneapolis and St. Paul. So that's kind of why you see the two cities sort of in a far distance as like a fantasy dream world future that's coming to Dakota homelands, and I always thought if people could learn to get along a lot earlier, that, we would be better off as people. And it's sort of kind of thinking about, I don't know, like a different timeline. They say the universe, there's all kinds of different parallel universes where different things happen. So I imagine in a parallel universe, Dakota and Europeans got along better, and we just had a better relationship with each other. And this mural I painted for the city of Bloomington. It was my first spray painting mural. I really don't have a good hang of spray painting, but I do like the way this one came out. It's called Capamini. The city of Bloomington, they hired a bunch of artists to create different pieces on this really long wall. If you drive to the Mall of America, you might see it. And I didn't know when I created this that the construction company that built like those buildings down there would actually get upset over this, because I originally created this mural to talk about, why Dakota people built, why we have our burial mounds along the river. And it's because of the concept of Kapemini, which is what is above happens below. And, the Milky Way above, that is the spirit road that we travel in the afterworld. And on Earth, it's seen as the Mississippi River. And so we buried our ancestors along the river so that they have a easier travels in the afterworld, and that we could also visit them and they could have an easy access to meeting us. And I guess there used to be burial mounds in Bloomington where they built, I think, some of those buildings, that new light rail station, and they sort of destroyed them in the early 2000s. So this wasn't that long ago. And I didn't know that the company that was doing that was actually funding this mural. And so they
Oh
showed up.
no.
Yeah, so they showed up at a meeting with a bunch of paperwork showing how they had permission to destroy those burials. They kind of shopped around looking for native people who'd give them approval, because so many people were protesting it. And they just shopped around till they found someone that said yes, and that's who gave them permission. And it's still like shady background story of like how they actually got that permission. But for me, I didn't even know that happened until they showed up, and so they were so feeling so guilty about it that they kind of just told on themselves, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
There still is burials there. There's that what is it? Ball racketing place like a couple blocks. What is
Hmm.
it? South by closer to Mall of America. There's a
Yeah,
farm there and there's still burial mounds in it, but it's privately owned.
yeah,
Um yeah, and so it we're still there.
yeah,
Um so they, that's, but it's pretty amazing that art can still tell our stories and still be a placemaker for, history that's been there and that they tried to erase. That's amazing. I'm so impressed by this. And I think you did really good with spray painting. Did you use a lot of stencils for this or did you tape them off? Because it looks like you had a really steady hand in this.
I had paper, like I had a square 1 foot square, and I cut it in half for the diagonals, and then I just made the morning stars out of stencils and a circle out of stencil, and that was it. So I just measured it foot by foot. I don't know. I don't know why I did it that way, but
I think you did good. That's super clean. Like it could be runny,
yeah,
it could be a lot of things, but it looks really good. And in
yeah.
person, this thing, how what is that? How big is it again? 24
Uh,
by 12 feet?
yeah, but the overall, all the murals are really huge, so it's like it's worth
Yeah, like
checking out.
in yeah, in person, this thing is gigantic. So it's
Hmm.
beautiful to just be there. So anybody that's by the Mall of America, in that area, go check it out. Marlena's work, and I have one of my friend Ka, her murals up there too. And your girl is up there. I'm carrying a water pail, so I'm like, I like
Oh,
driving by there because I get to see myself.
I didn't know you were in the barrel. That's cool though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the lady with a ribbon skirt on
Oh,
carrying a
okay.
water pail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. That makes
but everybody should go there for Marlena's work, not not to see me walking with the water
Not
pail.
I think we should all go and take pictures of Gracie and tag you in
Yeah,
it.
I know. Like, just tag me in it that I'll just walk. Okay, I'll be quiet.
But yeah, so I mean, I get a lot of positive experiences, but this was kind of like a negative experience. I wasn't expecting, but I think if these construction company feel so much guilt about what they did, then why don't you try to like make amends, like make a memorial park or something that recreates burial mounds. No one says that, we can't have new burial mounds that represent new things, that honor and restore and heal these relationships that obviously it's bothering them if they show up to a meeting with a bunch of paperwork. But that's just like what I think. And then I've worked with other land developers too who have buildings that every building has a Dakota land map in it so they can let their residents know who are there, who are native, that they're seen, and other people who are not native, that this is indigenous people's land and we should respect it. So, I mean, there's also just different ways developers can go about honoring the land that their building is on. This is my most recent mural. I created it for Target on Lake Street, that is across from the third precinct that was burned down. And
Oh, that's beautiful, Marlena. When did you
so
get done with this one?
this one went up, I think, in June, just recently.
Oh,
I was supposed to paint it,
so
but
beautiful.
the ground in front of it is uneven. It's also where the loading docks were. So I just asked him if I could get it with a vinyl print and have it just installed from the digital file. And
Yeah,
when they said that, I just added a few more details and stuff to it. Stuff that I wouldn't have wanted to paint. Like I wouldn't have wanted to paint all
yeah,
these like background patterns. But the whole building is covered with murals from people in the community who are, talking about healing. And so there's a poem that we all got a word from. I got the word rooted from the poem. So you can see how deep, how long the roots spread, and how we care for the plants and how they care for us, and like what's passed down through our genetics, and how do we protect the future as the living generations today. So it just speaks about that. A lot of my pieces, tries to honor the land and what we can learn from it and how we can reconnect to it. And so I created Dakota Spirits, an illustrator. They've each in a different place. They all have like a relationship to a plant that's in it. They have a relationship either to, like their symbolism in our ceremonies, or something that's currently happening today. Because I try to place Dakota people, even our spirits, as living in the world that we live in. But these have inspired me to create like the Dakota Spirit Walk that is at the Bruce Bento Nature Sanctuary in St. Paul. It's a GPS based app, like a art installation. Augmented reality uses your phone to place the art in front of you, so you see these play out and you hear them speaking, and each spirit tells you either something historical or cultural or significance to the land around us. And like we tell people this is sacred, but I think they don't really understand what that means. And so augmented reality lets me as a Dakota person see let them see the world as I see it as a Dakota person. And I think that lets them understand, what sacred means, because a lot of, I think European cultures, they've kind of lost that connection to their own homelands, and they've lost what it means to be, have sacred sites. And so as a Dakota person, I want to show them what that means in the world that they visit all the time living here in the Twin Cities. And here's some more pictures of people visiting the site. So you can take pictures. You can get content for the gram, for Instagram if you want. I don't know. It's just fun. You can visit it anytime. It's meant to be educational as well as good for the kids and people. Like I've had elders who say, "Oh, I can't work a phone," but they go there with their grandchildren who show them how. And so I think it lets the generations also connect with each other and learn from each other, which is like our traditional way of learning. And I'm currently working on some more augmented reality. I'm creating a Dakota land map augmented reality. So you'll be able to use these on your phones anywhere. You can open up these installations and not GPS based, but you can go to the locations to play with the art installations. I'll have more coming out the beginning of next month, but Dakota land map is where they will all be at. I have one up right now, which is the 3D version of the Dakota land map. When you click the labels, it pronounces the Dakota names, and I don't know. It's just fun. I think ways to get people speaking the language and having it accessible to hear the language and read the text. And I think for kids too to see that our culture is living in the present. And I'm working with the landscape arboretum to create another spirit walk called the Sacred Hoop Walk there that will talk about our relationship living within the sacred hoop and how we need to mend that hoop before we go extinct, before other animals and insects and plants and all those go extinct because they're the ones kind of causing it to happen. But that should come out in October, so you can follow my social media to see that as it comes along. And I'll just speak a little bit about other work that I do quickly. So I do animations, I do a lot of music videos. So these are a few I've done. And then also I did one for the Humanity Center where they wanted to talk about Dakota star knowledge. And so I just animated to the narration of a astronomer who could speak about Dakota constellations. But the other ones are animated videos. You can check them out on my website. And I also do fabric designs. I've created for Baby Bling, which is a little baby company that makes hair ties and bows and really cute things for babies. I've designed for Sheen, but I also design on Spoonflower that anybody can buy these fabrics and design your own material because, I like fashionable things, but I never see anything for a while before I started. I didn't really see anything other than like Pendleton Designs, and like that's like a non-native company. Sometimes they hire native people to design for them, sometimes they don't. But I just wanted to give people new things to work with and build with and design with. So I have fun with it as like a little side hobby just to create for other people. And then these are book covers I've illustrated, and I've learned a lot illustrating books, good and bad, and so I wanted to create my own Dakota publishing company where I can help other people get into having their books published. And so this is Wio Unkipi, which is we are capable. It means we will achieve things. We will be successful. We won't be defeated. And so I wanted that mindset. That we're able to have our books written by us. We have our stories told. We don't need a non-native person editing our voices for us, and also have Dakota and Lakota people, illustrate. So these are just a few of the covers and some of the cover pages, and also have free resources too, because I want to make sure, that what I create can be accessible by everybody. It shouldn't always be behind a paywall. But that's my little presentation about the work I do. I do a lot of different things, but all of it comes
Yeah.
from being digital and exporting from these different formats.
Yeah, and I have a coloring book. I got 2 coloring books for my kids, and they love them, and it's something that it's like, growing up, like you mentioned, growing up in Minnesota, it wasn't until, 2000, 2007, 2006 when they started to talk about Minnesota being Dakota ancestral lands. It wasn't in curriculum. When so it's like you're doing things that should have been there when we were younger. And even my res is in Sisseton, South Dakota. Like all the designs there that I seen growing up were mostly geometrics. We didn't see Dakota florals. So it's pretty amazing that there's books, there's coloring sheets, there's all this material that kids can be saturated with their environment, and know that this is where they're from. So I love everything that you do. So this evening, everyone, we are speaking to Marlena and Myles. We are talking about digital art and the value of digital art as a native art pedagogy. Everybody that is viewing us on the MNAA Facebook website, as well as the powers.com Facebook website, we are answering questions as well. Um, and somebody just asked a question just now. It says, how does the image appear?
So
I think
just to
they're talking.
clarify, that was when you're talking about the VR stuff, Marlena. Someone was wondering how you actually get the images to come up.
Well, it's augmented reality, so that's a little bit different than VR. VR, you need like the special goggles, but augmented reality uses your phone camera to place the art wherever you're looking at with your phone. So, I mean, I think people know Pokemon Go, where
Yeah,
people look through
Pokemon.
their, yeah. So the Pokemon show up wherever your phone is kind of aiming. You can interact with them. So it's kind of like that technology. So on my website, you can click the Dakota Spirit Walk and download the app for that one and go to the site and play with it. Or there's a different app I use on Dakota Land Map where you download that app, and that one you can open up anywhere. You don't need to go to that location. So yeah, so it uses
Cool.
your phone's technology and your phone's camera to make the images put in your room. It adds like shadow. It like takes in mind like where you're at in position to things. So it lets you interact with it using the technology in your phone, like GPS and all that.
Cool. Well, so if anybody else has any questions, we're still on until 7:30. If you have any more questions for Marlena, or if you have anything comments about digital art or the value of digital art, just let us know. Below is Marlena's website that you can go to. She's got a number of things going on, so just look up her name. I'm pretty sure a lot of things will come up. So going into digital art as a native pedagogy, I guess I would say my next question would be, how would you define digital art and what makes it native art? I think this conversation, I've heard it a few different times, and I really love everybody's input on what makes native art. And I just want to hear your take on that.
Well, I mean, people have always been innovative. Any new material that we get, we incorporate into our culture to tell our stories, to show what our art forms, like visually what that represents, also to decorate ourselves with medicine plants, that we want to have these relationships with the natural world. And so digital art, it's just a new medium that we're taking in to tell these stories. A lot of the work I create, it's teaching a story. It's teaching what a symbol might mean or what a plant might mean to us in our relationship. So I really don't think it's anything outside of what native art can and should be. We should always be going to the future. We shouldn't always just be stuck in the past or letting even like native markets that have white buyers, like they shouldn't be defining what is native art. My art might not sell as much as like a beautiful beaded bag or something, but it has value and it's something that if young people are inspired to do, you can do both. You can be traditional with mediums or you could do something digital or combine them both. So I don't feel like it should be if or whatever. It should be all of it should be included as Native people because we live in today's world.
Yeah, and it's really about sovereignty. You know, our sovereignty is our choice and our agency to create and do whatever we want. And you have taking a medium that is underrepresented. And because, it's really, I think everybody pretty much has like their stories of why they choose their mediums. There's some people that go into photography, some people that go into glass making, some people that go into digital arts, some people that go into beadwork, and every one of those mediums is monies that you have to invest in your medium, the how you're going to use it, how you're going to use it to tell your narrative, your story as being a Dakota person or any other tribal affiliation, how you tell your family narrative, or even just yourself, and or even the lack thereof, that maybe that is something that you never knew about. It's a way to share it. And I feel like with digital art, it's still having remembering that sovereignty, but also knowing that it's really what you're invested in. And I think that, like, people like yourself and, Ashley, who's helping us facilitate and running a StreamYard, and more, Jonathan Thunder and many other people that create in this medium. uh, it's almost that I can tell that it's really time consuming to know all of those things. Like, I barely understand Photoshop, and I barely like, I can edit film, but that took me that I've been doing that since, like, through Adobe for since 2015 after Final Cut Pro. It's like I can't imagine learning the augmentations, learning how to do stuff for a vinyl, learning how to do stuff for fabric, for fashion, learning how to do stuff for illustrations for a book, illustrations for coloring book. You're just like completely expressing yourselves in all different modes and ways, and you're hitting a lot of people. And so I feel like digital art, I really feel that it's something that you definitely need to invest in a lot of time. Like, I kind of sometimes wish that we were all Keanu Reeves in the Matrix and we're just able to, like, yes, now I know how to vectorize an image, but it takes a long time just to learn how to vectorize something to make it look like that beautiful. The vinyls that you did on the windows, like, those are super beautiful and they're so clean. I feel like, it's not just time, it's money too. I can tell that it's just a lot of love for this craft. What was your early influences and inspirations to create digitally?
Like I said, when I was 1999 to me. It must have been like when I was 13 or 14. I got my first computer and I started creating on it. And because I played the flute, to learn like a 4 minute long song, you practice, 40 hours a week just to learn that little 4 minute song you're going to play in front of people. So I think already having a mindset of being able to sit there and spend a long time to learn something and know how bad you start out with an instrument, how horribly you sound, and everybody hears how horribly you sound, and eventually putting time into it and figuring out and getting easier to learn new things. And, I think that's just like having that mindset as a young kid to know that I can teach myself something and eventually, get hold of it. And the computers, there wasn't that many things to make things easier. So I had to learn to like hold websites by hand. I had to like do everything the hard way. So now that people from my generation grew up and are making these programs, we know how to make things the easy way so that it's easier for new people to get into these programs. So if you want to get into augmented reality, there's like Adobe Aero, which is free to download and use right now. And it's not hard at all to create your own augmented reality. You just bring images and click it and tell it what behavior you want it to have, and it'll do it. Before you'd have to put in all the code to get it to do anything. So, but yeah,
It's
my
bringing me
earliest.
back to MySpace. Like, everybody was like into MySpace, putting their codes and copying and pasting. And like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it.
Yeah, just learning for me, learning the hard way to code, I think has let me understand just how privileged people are today. Even me, when new programs come out, how quickly I'll be able to learn it. And digital people, I think we're different, a little bit different than maybe studio artists because we're sort of going into a new frontier and there's not a lot of tutorials out there how to do these things. So we're open with sharing our knowledge with each other and sharing how we do things. Whereas, like, if you want to be impressionist painting, that technique exists and you just follow that technique and learn that technique. You don't really get to go off into the wilderness without people, being more critical of your art just because it's already well defined at what it should be. But yeah, like digital art, it's still a lot of new things happening, and we teach each other, we learn from each other. We see someone doing something new in a program, and we're like, "How'd you do that?" And we download that program, we start learning it too. So it's how I learn about these programs is always having friends who do digital art and just seeing the cool stuff they do. And I'm like, well, how can I do that to tell native stories?
Yeah. What are like the good things with using digital art as an art expression?
I think it lets me do more, like more things. I could take one file, take the piece of from it, readapt it into something totally new, and just kind of like repurpose files and give them new life. Like I could take a 2D image and learn to animate it, and now it turns into a music video because everything's turned into a puppet that I can move about to the music. And it just lets me make it more interactive with people. So for me, why I can do so many different things is because that program has so many ways to export it and have it printed, let's say as vinyl, as fabric, put into formats that you can animate. So I guess for me, the advantage of being a digital artist is just being able to do a lot more with one image.
And then what would you say are the challenges, if there are any challenges?
I mean, every few years I have to upgrade all my equipment. Like right now, I have like a really super computer that'll last me for a while, but it costs like almost $5,000 to get like the best processor, the best graphics card, all that. So I think the challenge is just like being able to afford programming and all that, and just they keep all going to subscription based too. So you can't even just buy the program anymore. You have to pay each month to keep using it. So I feel like that's
Yeah,
just
and I
another
thought
way
that was
to.
a good thing. Or is it not a good thing? Because I remember like Microsoft Word, when you're in undergrad, you're having to buy, you know, the disk and stuff, and it costs a lot of money. Or if you had connections to other people, then they would give you, their copy of it. That was like back in the day, circa like 2008. But I just and I guess I'm maybe one of those lazy people that just buys the subscription every month, and I'm like, whatever.
I mean, I buy it now, but before getting a serial code and just having the program forever with that serial code, however you got it, we're not going to go into how you got that serial code, whether you bought it or not. But you could have the program and you could learn it. A lot of people my age who are doing digital stuff, they didn't pay for the first Photoshop that got them into it. And so I think having to pay $20 a month and you're not making art to sell, you just want to create art, like that can be an expense that you might not be able to afford, especially if you're worried about rent or bills. And that's just one program, so it adds up with all these different programs. Like if I want to do 3D modeling, I have to get Cinema 4D and I have to pay, like $600 a year to use that program. If I want to use Photoshop and I download the whole suite, so that's $52 a month times 12, and that's every program. It's just costing me money, and so as a professional, it's part of my cost as an artist. Like just like a painter will have to buy paint, or a beadwork artist will have to buy beads and threads. Like it's just cost that you have to make back by selling something too. So you're always worried too. It's like
Yeah.
can't just do this for fun if otherwise, won't be able to support myself. So you always have to take commissions, and I don't know. It's just I feel like you just kind of get stuck in the whales. The subscription based stuff just gets you stuck in the whales of now I need to make this hobby turn into profits.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're doing good with, like, going into wearable art too. I think I don't know, for me, I feel like whenever I go into any arts market, I'm looking for wearable art, I'm looking for earrings, stuff that I can afford, looking for cups, I'm looking for T-shirts, I'm looking for things that I can own from a piece of a person. Think, like, the only person I know that took credit cards at one point, I, like, bought their jacket right away, and I'm still making those payments. Like, otherwise, you can't use a credit card to purchase, like, a painting. It's, like, something that you need to have, a sort of capital that you need to have.
Yeah.
Um, Native people adopt new mediums and which have evolved, our art practices. What do you think will be the next thing after digital art? Or is it even here?
I mean, I don't know. Zuckerberg, whatever, is trying to force us into the metaverse. So I don't know if we're just gonna go and have to deal with people colonizing our metaverse islands that we make for ourselves. I don't know. Like I feel like that's what they're trying to force us out of our own reality into a virtual reality, because I don't really agree with virtual reality or escapism and kind of that stuff. Like augmented reality, you're using your technology to be in the space and interact with that space. So I feel like people complain about people sitting on their computers all day or on their phones all day. You know, augmented reality gets you away from just doing that. You're kind of combining the two, whereas virtual reality, that's just more escapism from the problems that we have to fix as human beings and change our own behaviors. So I feel like that's where they're trying to force digital art, especially with like the NFTs and the bitcoins. And even though I'm a digital artist person, I don't subscribe to NFTs or digital currency or any of that. I just feel these are not regulated. I don't want to be like, we need regulation on capitalism, on art and creativity, but
Mhm.
people use these for nefarious reasons if you just let them do it. I remember when the internet used to be the Wild West in the early 90s and stuff, people had dial up internet and everyone's in chat rooms for the first times. And, that's when suddenly To Catch a Predator came on TV. That's we learned people were bad on the internet. So I don't know.
Yeah. Those are good points. I mean, I didn't think about that. I mean, I remember when Pokemon Go came out, people were saying that they were losing weight because they were like having to go catch them all. And they were like, it was changing people's lifestyles, just like that other Dance America. I forget what it is, Dance Dance something.
Dance
I've
Dance
I've had
Revolution.
yeah, revolution. I've had people like lose a lot of weight just because they were up, walking around and doing things. I know my brothers have a VR and Oculus, and they were kind of showing me how you can like paint with the Oculus. And unfortunately, I'm one of those people that get super sick, like with VRs, like motion sickness. Like the last game I could play was Sonic the Hedgehog because it was just like a game that would go this way, but now it's like you're the person and you're going through stuff, and I just like get vomity even just thinking about it. So I'm like, it completely excludes me from that, and I can't imagine being on a VR creating a piece of like a painting that's like not going to be used for anything, or not going to be, I don't know, however that's going to, however you're going to sell something like that or even collect something like that. But those are really good points. At least you're being able to interact with something in augmented reality with, in person, but not necessarily, and it's getting you out to those places that you may not have gone before. Um, so I guess I never even thought about those things, and it kind of reminds you of like dystopia, like when you're really just, I think a lot, every time I talk about future, I always talk about Black Mirror from Netflix, because there was an episode on there where everybody was just in these little tiny rooms, and that's all they're doing, right? And it's like their existence, that was like their job, and that was kind of a hobby in one, and to me, I'm like, oh, that's like dystopia, you know. Let's talk about the good things. Let's talk about getting out into nature and using technology rather than just as to pacify
Yeah.
trauma or drama.
Yeah.
Um, how does technology improve native art?
Well, I mean, I think it's up to individual. You could say, how does anybody improve native art? And it kind of has to be the person's ability to critique society. Like artists can do that, and educate society, or educate themselves. Like when I'm creating a work, I learn more about my own culture. I've been learning the language each time I make one of these worksheets, because they didn't exist for me. Like we just learn numbers and animals and colors, being able to put them into sentences. When I create a book that teaches that, I learn it from myself. So I improve myself as a person through native art. And I don't know, like it's up to the person. Like I create what I do through digital art, but it doesn't mean other people will develop themselves the same way through the same medium. But you can develop
Yeah.
yourself through any art form, I think. And every person who improves themselves, who set better standards for the way they live and treat others, that will improve society.
Yeah. And um, I feel like all of that, it will improve it, or, it reaches like more people out there. And just like you said about it not being available when we were younger, and now it's there. Younger people are now getting to see those things and be exposed to those things. So I wanted to leave some time for some of our viewers to if there's any questions. I don't know, Ashley, did anybody have any questions? Otherwise, I have a couple more questions, and I want to make sure we get to some of those. She might have gone to the bathroom. So I
I'm
would
here.
say,
Someone just there wasn't a lot of there was a lot of positive comments, but not a lot of questions. Someone did ask what kind of spray paint you used.
They gave us at Montana gold spray paint, I think it was. I'm not like an expert in spray paint. If you want to ask someone about spray paint, there's a Lakota artist. Her name's Thomasina Top Bear. She's like one of the best. She will make clean lines without needing a paper stencil like me. So find her and ask her, for help with spray paint. She's the one to go to.
cool. So I wanted to ask you that I have many questions, but I have to cut it down. I want to say, what would you say to a young native artist that wants to create digital art? What are the things that you wish somebody said to you when you were coming up? Or what are some advices for digital art?
I mean, it's okay to be different. There's people who see the way I do Dakota Spirit and they're like, that looks weird. They get offended by it or something. But that's the vision that came to me. And, I had older artists who are really successful. They see what I'm doing and they encourage me to keep being different or doing things my way. And even my mom, when I create these things, she's like, come up with your own designs because she professional beadwork artist growing up, and I saw that you can make money as an artist. You can support your family as an artist, so you can support yourself as a digital artist. You can do graphic design, you could do book design, anything you see around you that has a design. You can design that, and that could be video games, that could be, I don't know, it could be anything you want it to be. So I just feel like if you get a computer, like I feel like I could live in the middle of nowhere and be able to create these same types of art. It doesn't have to be in a city setting. You don't have to move to a city to find work if you have the internet and have a computer with you. So I just feel like it connects you to the world, and use that to not limit yourself. And don't let other people tell you what you can or can't do. Find out for yourself what really inspires you to wake up and want to spend 50 hours creating something.
Yeah, I would say, that's really powerful advice. Is there any like hacks for equipment that they should be getting? Because I know some people use Procreate on their iPads, or some people buy all this other stuff. Like, what would you say is like, get this before you get this, or
I
how
mean,
do I do this?
it just depends on your art style. If you want something really precise and clean, like learn Adobe Illustrator or learn a vector program, one of the alternatives to that. If you like to draw and maybe do actual digital painting, like Procreate is good for that too. I don't necessarily like Apple programs or even Apple at all, but that's an actually good program to use if you want to get started. And um, but I don't know. It just really just depends on what you want to do. Like there's animating things like Character Animate, where you can just download a puppet and start speaking through the puppet using your webcam. And if you want to like have characters speak Lakota, Dakota, or any language you want, it will mimic exactly what you're doing, just like a Snapchat filter can put like dog ears on your real face. It will put like the character, your movements onto the character. So if you want to do cartoon animating, that's a good way to just get started. So it really just depends on what you want to do. But I can't really, if you don't like illustrating, like Adobe Illustrator is our program to learn. And if you don't want to learn design and stuff, then just skip that program and doing a drawing program. There's like a program called Rebel 5, which does realistic watercolors. You can't even tell the difference between that and like an actual watercolor painting if you spend time with it too. So if you want to do really realistic, traditional looking art on a computer, there's programs for that too. If you just don't want to invest in the cost and paper and space and stuff to paint traditionally, like there's still ways you can use the computer to create those kind of art forms too. So I don't know. It
Yeah.
really just depends on the interest.
Well, thank you for sharing all those things. I'll have to figure all that out too. Just kidding. Um, so thank you, Marlena. I wanted to say that the gifts that we had, the tea was from Eagle Butte, South Dakota, from the Cheyenne River Youth Project. The tea was Sapa Kanja Wakbe, choke cherry tea. And I don't know if they sent you the Cheaka Wakbe, the field mint tea or not. Yep, those two. So those are from our connections out west. And yeah, thanks again, Marlena, for everything that you do in the community and what you're going to be doing, pursuing in the future. If anybody ever wants to get a hold of Marlena, we shared her website. We can share that one more time before we sign off. And if there's any other questions, yep, there's her website. Support her artwork. The things that she's been doing is amazing, and it's been really phenomenal to see just the positive outcomes, how it comes for our youth, for that next generation. And yeah, stay tuned for next month. We will be talking to did I forget? No, Tony Drews. I remembered his name. Tony Drews from First People's Fund. That will be at the end of September. So thank you again, Marlena, for your time. I appreciate this and the things that you do. And I'll just see you in the future in sometime soon. And I'll probably see your artwork before I see you. So have everybody have a good evening. And thanks again, Ashley, for helping us run our stream yard this evening. And have a good evening, everybody. Dokshta, okay.